Hi there, and welcome to Lost in Literature. I'm planning to do Julius Caesar, Act 1, Scene 1, and this is especially for Srijas Chowdhury, who had requested me for the same in the comments. So, here we go. But before I start with the the explanation of scene one, I'd like to um, do a little bit, give you an idea of the Roman history at that time. Well, Caesar was an extremely brilliant general. All right, he was a military genius, and he was very, very popular among the people of Rome and the soldiers, particularly, because in those days, the soldiers were paid with gold and land. So their loyalty was directly to the general rather than the republic. Okay, now this was the situation, and Caesar was on this spree of conquest, and he was bringing a lot of, money to Rome by way of um, taxes from the prisoners of war. Okay, so at this time, now Caesar formed a kind of triumvirate with two other men. It was a kind of alliance with General Pompey, who was equally popular with the masses, and also a very wealthy gentleman called Crassus. So three of them, they were the part of the first triumvirate. All right, and kind of they were very much involved in the governing of the country, the republic, so to speak. Now everything was going fine, except that Caesar kept going on these, conquests all over, so that he could expand, um, the throne of Rome. And whereas Pompey was now slowly getting close to the Senate, that is the governing body right in Rome. And he was kind of jealous of Caesar. And somewhere along the line, Crassus, the third triumvir, was killed in battle. So now it was just Pompey and Caesar. And Pompey wanted to somehow eliminate Caesar so he could seize all the power himself. So what did he do? He began associating more and more with the Senate, and together they ordered Caesar to come back from one of the battles he was involved in immediately to Rome without his army. Now Caesar is a very shrewd fellow. He knew something was up, so he came back with his army, and they were very loyal to him. And then a kind of battle between Caesar and Pompey broke out even before he reached Rome. And Caesar defeated whoever the army that came with Pompey, and also killed Pompey. And then he marched into Rome unchallenged. So, this is the scene, this is the part that is presented to you in the first scene, where all the Romans, the common people, all right, basically, um, the common people were the ones with whom the triumvirs communicated more than ever. So the common people were extremely happy, and they were waiting to welcome Caesar back into their midst because he was coming triumphantly. And so they were waiting for Caesar to come into the city. And at that time, two tribunes, Flavius and Marullus, the two of them went about the city and saw all these common people, workers who had given themselves a holiday and were waiting to celebrate the return of Caesar. And this kind of made them very angry. Basically, the tribunes are meant to support the common people. But ironically enough, Flavius and Marullus were not at all in support of the plebeians or the commoners in Rome. In fact, they looked down upon them, and you can make out from the tone they assumed how they were bullying the commoners. So let's start with this. Scene one happens in Rome, a street. Enter Flavius, Marullus, and some citizens over the stage. Flavius, hence, you hence home, you idle creatures, get you home. Is this a holiday? What? Know you not? Being mechanical, you ought not walk upon a labouring day without the sign of your profession. Speak, what trade art thou? So here you are, Flavius, rebuking uh, the public, all right? At least a group of workers, calling them idle creatures, talking down to them, and he's ordering them to go home, and he's telling them being mechanical being workmen, artisans, workmen. He's telling them, is this a holiday? And then he says, once again, should you be walking around on a working day, laboring day, without some sign of the profession on you? Meaning to say, where is your paraphernalia? Where are your tools? And where are your work clothes? How come you're walking around in these public streets on a working day? Who has given you a holiday? Get you home. That's how he's scolding them. And then he catches hold of a man and he says, speak, what trade art thou? First citizen, why, sir, a carpenter. And then Marullus says, where is your leather apron? And where is your rule? The rule is the ruler. And you know, the carpenter would wear naturally a leather, apron to protect himself. And he says, what are you? What dost thou with thy best apparel on? Why on earth are you wearing your best clothes? And then he turns to another man. You, sir, what trade are you? What about you? What are you? What's your trade? Second citizen is not so simple as the first one. He says, truly, sir, in respect of a fine workman, I am, but as you would say, a cobbler. Okay? So, I am a cobbler. All right? And then he says, and when he says cobbler, he is using a pun there. It is a portmanteau word. In the sense, it carries double meaning. On one hand, a cobbler refers to a shoemaker. On the other hand, when you say you cobble And someone, it means you fix a person. So there you are, this guy is answering quite cheekily. And now Marilus is slowly getting mad. But what trade art thou? Answer me directly. Tell me in a straightforward manner. Second citizen, a trade, sir, that I hope I may use with a safe conscience. So there you are, in his own way, he's giving it back to Mariulus, because Mariulus was supposed to be in support of commoners, and here he was yelling and shouting at them, hardly trying to understand. So he says, I hope I'm in a trade where, you know, which I can practice with a good conscience. Which is indeed, sir, a mender of bad souls. Now, souls, once again, is a pun. On one hand, the cobbler here is referring to souls, souls, all right, the souls of men. And on the other hand, soles, souls. You know what you've got under the shoe. That's your soul, the sole of the shoe. And he says he can mend both. Marilus, what trade, thou knave? Thou naughty knave, what trade? Marilus is really getting angry now because this guy is playing the fool with words. All right? So now he says, Nay, I beseech you, sir, be not out with me. Don't get angry with me. Yet, if you're out, sir, what he means is if you're out, if your shoes are worn out, I can mend it for you. If you're out, if your shoes, or if things are out of order with your soul, as so you will, I can mend it for you. What cheek, according to Mariolus. What meanest thou by that? Mend me, thou saucy fellow? That's Mariolus for you. Now he's truly mad. So he calls him a cheeky, impudent cobbler. Second citizen now, he says, Why, sir, cobble you. I can repair, patch you up, right? Your shoes, and if you want, your character too. Flavius, thou art a cobbler, art thou? Second citizen, truly, sir, all that I live by is with the awl. Now, awl is a kind of tool, it looks more like a screwdriver, and it is used by cobblers to make holes in the leather. So he says, I live by my awl, that's what I use, and I don't meddle with any tradesmen's matters. I don't meddle with anything. I don't interfere anywhere with anybody's business, nor do I bother with women's matters. But withal, nevertheless, I am indeed, sir, a surgeon to old shoes. That's what I am. I'm a surgeon. And when they are in great danger, I recover them, I repair them, I save them. As proper men as ever trod upon neat's leather have gone upon my handiwork. So he says a lot of gentlemen have used his shoes, the shoes made by him, and all of them have trod upon neat's leather, that is the hide of a cow or ox. And that was the material used to make shoes, leather. Flavius now says, But wherefore art thou in thy shop today? Wherefore art not in thy shop today? Why dost thou lead these men about the streets? Second citizen, oh my God, he's really a naughty man. He is truly, sir, to wear out their shoes, to get myself into more work. But indeed, sir, we make holiday to see Caesar and to rejoice in his triumph. So he says that's what we are going to do. Well, his first naughty answer is, I want them to wear their shoes out so that they'll come to me, right? And thereby I would be furthering my trade. And then he gives the true reason. He says, well, Caesar's coming back and we want to celebrate his victory. Marullus, wherefore rejoice? What is there to celebrate, rejoice, be happy about? What conquest is he bringing home? Right? And what tributaries follow him to Rome? What is he going to bring home? Nobody. At that point, see, when Caesar defeated Pompey, it was more or less like a civil war within Rome. Whereas if Caesar had conquered somebody outside, he would bring tribute to Rome. Those prisoners of wars, they would have to pay tribute, money to Rome to free themselves. So he says, which captive is he bringing home? Nobody. And on top of that, he says, nobody is going to follow his chariot, because there was this practice in the olden days when they would chain up the prisoners of war to the conqueror's chariot, and he would ride into the, city with all those people dragged behind, his chariot. And that is how he would display his power. So he says, what on earth are you rejoicing for? According to Marullus, no tributaries, nobody is going to bring any money through this civil war. And what is more, he's not bringing any captives along, all right? And then he says, you blocks, you stones, you worse than senseless things. That is Marullus truly rebuking, scolding the commoners, the masses. He really looks down on them. And he is supposed to be a representative, a tribune of them. Look at the irony. And look at the divide between the haves, the rich ones, and the have-nots, the poor, the working class. So he says, you people have no brains. You're senseless. And then he goes on to make them feel guilty. He wants to make them feel guilty. Oh, you hard hearts, you cruel men of Rome. Knew you not Pompey? Didn't you know Pompey? Many a time and oft have you climbed up to the walls and battlements. Many times you have climbed up to the walls and battlements, ramparts, fortresses. Why? To towers and windows, yea, to chimney tops, to, rather elevated places. And you've even carried your infants in your arms, and there you've sat the livelong day, the whole day, waiting patiently with anticipation to see great Pompey pass the streets of Rome. So now you know where the loyalty of Flavius and Marullus lie. They are totally with Pompey, who has been defeated and killed by Caesar. And now Caesar was marching into Rome. And then Marullus says, and when you saw his chariot but appear. So there are all these Romans sitting, uh, um, in places that would give them a good view, and they've been waiting patiently for Pompey to arrive. So Marullus reminds them, don't you remember those times when you waited for Pompey? to come to pass the streets of Rome, and when you saw his chariot but appear, did you not make a universal shout? Such a shout, the way you greeted him so loudly, with such an explosion of sound that even the river Tiber trembled underneath her banks. And what was more, they were the replications of your sounds. Your shouts were echoed from where? From her concave shores, from the hollow caves. All right, the concave shores, the hollow banks which echo the sounds. Okay, so that is exactly how you would greet Pompey in the past. And do you now put on your best attire? And now you are wearing your best clothes. And now you have culled out a holiday, picked out a holiday, declared a holiday for yourself. How dare you? And you are now scattering flowers in his way. Whose way? Caesar's way. This man who has come in triumph, in victory over Pompey's blood. He has come after killing Pompey. And you who waited for Pompey once upon a time, have you forgotten him? And now here you are waiting for Caesar, all right? And then he says, be gone. Run to your houses, fall upon your knees, pray to God, beg for mercy to intermit the plague, to delay this plague, suffering, the troubles that will be upon your head, given to you, meted out to you as divine punishment. Surely you will be punished for this show of ingratitude towards Pompey. And Flavius, now it's his turn. He says, go, go, good countrymen, and for this fault, assemble all the poor men of your sort, and gather on the banks of the river Tiber, and weep your tears into the channel, into the river. Weep, go there, fall upon your knees, beg for mercy, cry. All right, cry, beg for mercy till the water that's flowing low down will rise up to the most exalted shores of all, to the highest shores of all. Now, all the citizens, they have moved away listening to all these words. They don't want to tangle with these two tribunes. And then Flavius continues, see where their basest see whether their basest metal be not moved. So he's telling very exultantly to Marullus, see, even their basest metal, meaning their basest, lowest, humblest spirits, their ignoble nature, even they are affected, and they have vanished tongue-tied, speechless in their guilt. Go you down that way towards the capital. Now, the capital is the great national temple of Rome, dedicated to Jupiter, situated on the Capitoline hill. So, he says, you go towards the capital, and I will go the other way, and let's disrobe the images, pull away all the decorations from the images, the statues. Let's pull it off. If you find them decked with symbols of Caesar's victory, ceremonies, if you find them decked up, all these statues and images of Caesar, pull it down, all right? And Marullus says, may we do so? Should we do so? because you know it is the feast of Lupercal. Now, Lupercal is one of the ancient Roman festivals which was held annually on the 15th of February in honor of Lupercus, the god of fertility and protector of flocks and herds. So, this was a festival, and during this festival, a lot of noblemen ran through the streets of Rome, while, a lot of women who have not had children stood by the roadside, and they would touch these women, and that was supposed to imbue them with fertility, and it was a sign that they would have children in the future. So they would stand, all along the street, waiting for these men to come running and to touch them. All right, Caesar's wife Calpurnia, she stood too by the street, to be touched by Antonio, Caesar's friend. So Marius says, should we disrobe all these images during this feast of Lupercal? Flavius says it just doesn't matter. It does no matter. Let no images be hung with Caesar's trophies. I'll go about and drive away the vulgar, the commoners from the streets. So do you too, where you perceive them thick. Wherever you see a crowd of these plebeians, commoners, shoo them away, disperse them. These growing feathers plucked from Caesar's wing will make him fly an ordinary pitch. Now, we know how these people, Pompey's supporters, are viewing Caesar with all his conquests. They feel that he is growing these feathers of power. He wants to gain power over the people, and he's flying high. So they want to pull away the feathers so that he will fly at a normal pitch, normal speed. And then he says, who else would soar above the view of men and keep us all in servile fearfulness? So he says, if we don't pluck out these feathers of power and ambition from Caesar, he will surely fly high above the view of men and will make all of us follow him in fearfulness. He would become a dictator. So that's it. That's the end of Act 1, Scene 1. Srija, I hope it helps you and others too, other children too, who are doing ICSE. And if you like my channel, do subscribe. I could do with some subscriptions, and I'll go on with Shakespeare and also a lot of your stories from Treasure Chest. Thank you and see you again.